there is this seeming revival, small, but that is also very interesting that the majority, I think the clergy, or particularly bishops, leaders in the church, who are still many of them the boomers and people educated in the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, are not picking up the fact that for an average English person, again, I will speak only of England, for a young person in England, let's say under 30, 35 or whatever, they really have no concept of Christianity, basic concepts. So in some ways they're a lot of talk of inoculation and immunity, and in many ways they're ready to be infected by Christianity because it's a new, the concepts are new, and when you look at Western society, we hear of this tragedy, the loneliness and the young people's suicides, and when Christians offer, back to our earlier part of our conversation, when we propose a vision of what it means to be a human, of what it means to be a man and a woman, which apparently is controversial now to say that there are such things and there's no other such thing. And when we call people to the highest ideal, knowing that we're weak and sinners and failures, but also Christianity is the great religion of offering hope to people who fail and fall, letting them get up again, the religion of the second chance, the third chance, the fifth chance. When we offered that to people who've had no exposure to that, it's not surprising that apparently the churches are seeing, Orthodox churches are seeing quite significant numbers of young people, men and women, coming into the church across Europe. Last year, apparently, this Easter, apparently they said there were 10,000 baptisms in France, secular France. That's extraordinary. So something is happening. So I think that's good. The Holy Spirit is working in peculiar ways. Sometimes, though, the church is the last to realize that he's working.
I wonder what might be behind this, besides people being drawn in by the Christian faith for all of its mysteries and obviously the majesty of God. Could it also be down to the quite rapid changing demographics we've seen, where people are now starting to see civilizationally, culturally, that things are changing to a place they don't like, and it's almost forced them to introspect into what this place is that they ever valued and perhaps they took for granted growing up, and that actually anything good that is received needs to be maintained and enhanced and lived, and it can't just be talked about as an abstract ideal. I don't know whether you're seeing that within your own vocation, people coming to you for these reasons.
Well, the church I help out when I'm not traveling and doing this ministry, the church I help out with sometimes in Kent is seeing that. Thanks be to God, families coming, especially young families coming, who are, it's an ordinariate parish. I'm a priest of the ordinariate, so ex-Anglicans who became Catholics. So we have the liturgy is a traditional liturgy in English, but Cranmerian English, etc. So people are coming for that, for Orthodox preaching, etc. So no, it's very encouraging. I obviously it's small, but I think, as I said, if the demographic thing is a good point. You obviously have to be a thinker, though, to be perhaps the ordinary person day to day. I think COVID also showed that. We can get into very deep stuff, but unfortunately, I think COVID showed that give people their ciggies and their beer and sort of some sort of entertainment, a bit Brave New Worldish, but they're kind of okay with it. Suddenly, all their freedoms are gone, and I suppose for a lot of people, that's the same case. That well, again, I'll give you a very silly story, but it's illustrative in one. For a brief time, very brief time before I was a priest, I've been a priest 30 years, but for a very brief time, I drove a double-decker bus in London. It's just to sort of like get some that kind of experience. And I remember I was just happened. Sounds very pretentious, but I happened to be reading a book in the. We had to just wait in the garage to be assigned which bus we were going to drive in Shepherd's Bush. And I remember a chap I was training with. what's that book you're reading? I said, well, oh, it's about philosophy. He said, what's philosophy? Of course, I should have said, there you're a philosopher. But I said, it's about the meaning of life and all that kind of stuff. And he sort of paused for a second, and then he said, no, he said, I'm not really interested in all of that. He said, I like fishing. I said, well, okay. But that's kind of probably for a lot of people, that's reality. But for people who are really thinking, especially those moments in life when God breaks through either a death or a birth, a baby, people do think sometimes, what's it all about? And if the answer is all around us, well, aggressive Islam, which is changing the nature of this country, or aggressive secularism, which is an empty vessel, a booming gong, Christianity proposed beautifully, beauty, truth, and goodness, should draw people like bees to pollen. It should just draw them if the church wakes up and is aware of this. And it is obviously in certain places, but as I said, across the board, it's not. Giving people sort of a watered down version of secularism is absolutely doomed to failure.